What's going on, everybody? This your boy D Got Sense, and I'm back with another video to break down lack of appreciation is one of the greatest forms of disrespect. It's actually the greatest form of disrespect. And to touch on the video briefly that I made yesterday, well, I made it a few days ago, but I uploaded it yesterday. Um, the reason people also seek validation is because they're able to avoid accountability because most people believe that or most people have a hard time accepting the fact that they are flawed and have a bunch of issues wrong with them. So they try to fill that with compliments as a form of compensation, right? That's why crowd pleasers and centers of attention always have the biggest, validation tanks. Like they need to be constantly fueled. But I just had to throw that in there because when I re-listened to it, not re-listened to it, but when I listened to it again, I was like, oh, I didn't even say that. So with today's video, we're gonna get into the topic of lack of appreciation is the greatest form of disrespect. And then, like I always say, red is gonna be a quote from history, or and blue will be a quote of mine. I believe I wrote this one because I observed something out in the world and it caused me to really kind of think about it. And I was like, wow, that's probably the greatest form of disrespect um, without an act of violence taking place. You know what I mean? Like spitting in somebody's face because there's different forms of disrespect. So I'm gonna read the black, and I'm gonna do this one a little different. I'm gonna just read the black all the way through, and then I'm gonna, drop some gems off. So let's get on into it. Excuse me. In life, and I'll read it slow, just so I'm not rushing anything. In life, people will do things for you that money can't buy. Excuse me. Because the gift slash service is priceless because it can't be truly priced objectively, such as time or loyalty or trust, to name a few. So how do you pay for something that's priceless, non-monetarily speaking? The answer is simple: appreciation. Appreciation is the foundation that leads to all other forms of displaying gratitude. So I think one thing that's not really talked about is things that can't be bought. For example, integrity cannot be bought, right? You can't pay someone to do the right thing when no one is looking. You can't pay someone to have your best interests at heart, right? It's either they have it or they don't, right? Either they value you enough to do right by you uh, in the long term and not lie to you, not withhold the truth, and not sugarcoat, which is a major issue that I've noticed in the modern world today is sugarcoating. Um, that type of stuff cannot be bought. And then the reason it can't be bought also is because it can't be priced. Not everyone views loyalty on the on the same spectrum. Not everyone views integrity on the same spectrum. That's how you get dirty, low down dirt divers, because they don't really care about understanding life and standing on some principle. It's not a concern to them. So when you run into most people in life, you have to ask yourself how much do they value principles, and not just any principles, right? Those that are based in results, positive results at that, um, that don't negatively impact everyone around them or is a detriment to everyone around them. And that's one thing you can never lose sight of whenever you're coming in contact with people, because those type of things cannot be priced and they can't be bought, and they're always subjective because depending on the person you're asking is going to determine the answer you get. That's why I said it can't be truly priced objectively. Like we all can't come to an agreement. That's why you will have different, and the job force is a prime example. That's why you can have two people doing the same job, but one company offers this and one company offers that. Some might say, well, it's because of marketing or it's because of this, because of that, but either way it's not going to be the same price, right? Loyalty, right? You have guys that, you got mob bosses that'll pay an arm and a leg to have somebody, and then there's other people that will do something for that person's family to help them out, right? Those are different forms of payment, so we can't all come together and say, hey, this is a set number that will pay someone for loyalty or trust, right? And to touch on trust quite for a brief second, trust is like glass, right? We've all probably seen the picture of a perfectly refined glass, how it's perfect, spotless, no cracks or no blemishes or anything like that. But the moment it cracks, no matter how well you're able to reconstruct it, it'll never be as that perfect glass that it once was. So that's the reason um, it can't be bought, right? Or it can't even be priced. So how do you pay for something priceless, unrelated to money or finance, anything financial? The answer is simple: appreciation. Um, that's like trying to, and that's another thing about the modern world today. Everyone is charging for their time, but I, quite frankly, a lot of people are lowballing themselves because your time truly can't be priced. You know what I mean? Everyone can come to a general area of agreement, but it'll never be, definite. But in all honesty, everyone's lowballing themselves because you get one life, certain amount of hours in a day, a year, a month, um, all of that. And yet people are so quick to just throw their time away. Um, so how do you pay somebody for something that really can't be priced, right? Like you can't pay someone to love you. You can't pay someone um, to not go behind your back and talk crazy about you. You know what I mean? You can't pay for that. So how do you show someone the level of gratitude that you have for them without using something such as fiat currency or the the current monetary system, right? And the simple answer is appreciation, right? It don't cost to tell someone and show someone that you're very thankful, grateful, and appreciative of something that they've done for you, right? Because most people do think there's two types of people in this world. There's people that do things out of the kindness of their heart, and there's people that do things solely to receive something from you, despite if it um, impacts you negatively or positively. It really doesn't matter as long as they get what they want. Now, let me say this: we all do things to get something out of anything, right? Like you're not gonna go eat a fruit and don't expect that fruit to pay you back with some nutrition. You see what I'm saying? Now, there are people that eat honey buns, but they're what they're getting paid back in is being having a sweet tooth, or not having a sweet tooth, but their sweet tooth being satisfied, right? So even you're getting something out of that honey bun. You you see what I'm saying? So we're all looking for a return on our investment. The question is, how much are you getting back? And when it comes to appreciation, it's one of the greatest forms because it shows a level of humbleness. Because it you because let me explain this. You truly have to humble yourself to tell someone that you appreciate them, right? Because you have to come off your high horse and essentially admit that, hey, what you did for me was something I either couldn't do for myself, didn't have the time to do it for myself. Basically, I needed support in some form or facet, and whether I knew I needed it or I didn't know I needed it, you came through, and it greatly impacted me in an advantageous way, right? So that's why appreciation is one of those great forms, and it builds off of everything, or it builds. It's a strong foundation that leads to everything else being built, which leads to the third one. Appreciation is the foundation that leads to all other forms of displaying gratitude, right? Because once you appreciate something, now you have the passion to show someone, hey, I'm really thankful for what you did because you didn't have to do it. And from that day, now your mind is going to start firing on all cylinders, and you'll become very creative in the way that you display that gratitude. And now that we've talked about that a little bit, now it's time to get into the meat of the matter, which is why the lack of appreciation is one of the greatest forms of disrespect. So the reason the lack of appreciation is such a disrespectful thing is because they don't value the time that it took you to either formulate a plan. You see what I'm saying? the time it took you to complete the action. And remember, I just said time is priceless, right? You can't place a value on time. Like, yeah, everyone gets paid an hourly check, but we ain't all getting the same. Excuse me, we ain't all getting the same check. If you even getting the check, you know what I mean? Maybe you writing the checks, but either way, the money's coming from somewhere. But my whole point is this: certain things, right? There's really no limit to how much you could charge for it. You know what I mean? Because at a flip of a dime, if someone comes in as a higher bidder than the person that you were receiving that benefit or service from, they're now on the other side of the field. And the reason it's so disrespectful is because it shows an egotistical um, mindset of a person, because it's almost as if they feel entitled to your help, as if, oh, I expected that anyway. You know what I mean? Because when people don't appreciate something that you did, it's on their end, it shows a level of entitlement, as if that's something you were supposed to do, and not as if it was something out of the kindness of your heart. That's why whenever you notice in public, when people don't really appreciate small things like holding the door open. Like, all I had to do was make sure I got through the door. Anything that happened after that, that's on whoever else, right? But doing it, you know what I mean? It shows a level of love thy neighbor as thyself. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of people that I've noticed in this life have continuously had people that lack appreciation for the things that they do for them. And quite frankly, all it's going to do is drain your energy over time. And the reason that is because you're constantly giving and not receiving any hope, any fuel from that person, right? Because if it's kind of like if you have gas and you're always putting gas in the car, or not, or if you're always driving the car but you're never putting gas back in it, right? Um, you can only go so long helping everyone and never receiving anything back, right? Um, that's why you always have to have an infinite source, right? It's just one of those things that typically lead to stress, which will quite literally kill you, or it'll lead to resentment, and resentment leads to anger, and anger, when unchecked, leads to a built up level of, for men, testosterone. You gonna crash out on somebody. So now you're a ticking time bomb, all because you felt uh, unappreciated for all the work that you've done. And everyone can account of a time that they've done a lot of work and didn't receive anything from it. No not necessarily that you needed it, but no recognition, no thank you, no anything. But everyone uh, was greatly benefited, right? And the worst part, or the worst form, is when someone else steals your credit. Not even steals your credit, but they receive the credit and good graces that was yours, right? And that's the difference between deserved and earned, right? Earned is something that you did the work and you've received your payment, whatever that was. Deserved is you've done the work and you haven't received your form of payment yet. So when people lack appreciation, it shows their level of respect for you as well. Because if someone doesn't respect the time, the dedication, and the most importantly, the love, care, and compassion that you have for them to do things that quite frankly you didn't have to do, it shows their level of respect for you. And also it shows the way that they perceive the world. They perceive that everything should be handed to them and people should do things for them just because maybe of their appearance or who their parents are or whatever the case may be. But that's a very flawed mentality that will eventually make a lot of enemies, and you have to be very careful who you make enemies of, because not everyone let bygones be bygones. You know what I mean? Some people are very petty, and once you cross them, that's pretty much it. You know what I mean? So lack of appreciation is the greatest form of disrespect, because it speaks on so many levels to their opinion of you. You know what I mean? Because you don't take for granted, or excuse me, you don't take for granted things that you highly value, if that makes sense. You get what I'm saying? You're not going to allow yourself to let go the thing that you deem the most important in your life. So when someone lacks your appreciation, it also speaks to their level of um, care. What's the word I'm looking for? They don't really care that you're there, if that makes sense, right? Like, think about if you're an accountant and you don't have a calculator. Not accountant. Say you're an astrophysicist, right? And you don't have any of your equipment necessary, right? You're gonna feel very down about yourself. Why? Because you appreciate the value that it brings to your life. Think about a mechanic without his tools, right? You see what I'm saying? So imagine if you're a plumber, right? But you don't have your calculator, or you don't have what a mouse and a keyboard, right? You're not gonna really care because you don't deem it as valuable in your everyday life, your step by step process to get through the day. You don't really care about it, right? So what the lack of appreciation shows is you're not important in their step by step. And if you notice that there is a lack of appreciation, just understand you're not a useful tool in their mind, despite the result of your help, right? Because you could help them and it could greatly benefit them, but if they don't deem it as beneficial, they won't display their level of gratitude as beneficial, as if it was beneficial. That's how you get people that will give somebody everything under the sun just for the person to say, "Oh, I appreciate it, thanks," right? And like I always say, if your words and actions don't match, you're lying. It's as if I'm punching you in the face and saying I love you, or if I'm, and I mean really punching. I ain't talking about, I don't know. People play different depending on who you ask, but I mean really punching you, like they really trying to hurt you. Like you all know what hurt look like. You know what I'm saying? And that's like someone saying, I love you, I'll never hurt you. But every day at every opportunity they get, they're going to display their level of hatred towards you. You know what I mean? I've never allowed a person to show me a lack of appreciation twice. You see what I'm saying? Because the first time, it is what it is, right? You made a bad judgment call somewhere along the line leading up to that point, absolutely. But the second time, it's like, man, what are you doing with yourself? How many times does someone have to show you that they're very good at being bad for you to cut them off? You know what I mean? So when it comes to lack of appreciation, it really shows a lot about you. It shows a lot about them. Because why are you doing things for people that don't really care about it? They do enough to give you a false thank you or a false sense of gratitude, but not enough to sincerely or genuinely mean it. And that's a real problem. That's It's kind of like that's why most people have rarely met honest people, because most people aren't honest about a lot of things, like their, for example, their level of appreciation. Think about the time you've received a gift and you say, "Oh, thank you." You just lied, right? Even if you, because there's two ways you could have done that, right? The first form is the one I just mentioned, which is you say it and you don't really give it, you don't really care. And the second is you don't really like it, but you are so thankful for the fact that this person took time out of their day to even consider how you could feel, think, or be living enough to really go do something for you. That in of itself is depending on the dynamic, right? If it's your homeboy, you're gonna dap him up and just be like, what I'm saying, I really appreciate it, fam, because you didn't have to do this. I don't know how I'm gonna use it yet, but I know I'm gonna use it. You see what I'm saying? That's very different from oh man, yo, appreciate it. Yup. And another thing is you got to watch people body language when you do stuff for them. That's one thing I wanted to touch on. Um, Body language is a language in of itself, because if you are watching a camera, right, with no audio, the only thing you can go off of is body language, right? That's going to give people away, right? And look for their initial and then their developed reaction, right? How did because your initial reaction can't be faked. It's kind of like if you smell something really bad, like you cannot fake that. You're gonna wince up. You see what I'm saying? But then you might stop and think, well, nah, that could be this, and that. Wait, hold on. You're gonna watch how their mind is processing what's taking place. You see what I'm saying? So watch people's body language when it comes to gifting them, whether gifting them things, whether it be time, attention. It doesn't really matter what it is, whatever you're choosing to give to someone. And one thing that's important to understand is that whenever you see a lack of appreciation, you should be on very, very, very high alert. I didn't want to make this a super long video. I just wanted to touch on this real quick and speak on the fact that lack of appreciation is the greatest form of disrespect. Because it just, man, if you see it, just walk the other way. It don't matter who it is, man. And there's a few ways you could approach this. I mean, you can talk to them about it. You know, you can write them a letter if you're not a confrontational type of person. You know what I mean? You could give them space after that, and maybe their mind will come to the conclusion of, hey, I don't think I responded to that correctly, or quite frankly, you could just cut them off and not deal with them altogether. But lack of appreciation is one of those things, man. You don't want to allow it to happen in your life because over time, what'll happen is you will start to not appreciate yourself as a human being and start to question if you're even worth appreciating. You see what I'm saying? But that's all I got to say about this one, man. This your boy D Got Sense. Um, Dropping another video about the lack of appreciation, and I'll see y'all in the next one. That being said, peace. I'm out.